What happens when one of America's most beloved talk show hosts goes head-to-head with a comedian known for pushing boundaries? The answer is nothing short of explosive. Jeff Dunham, the ventriloquist, who has sold out arenas worldwide and built an empire on edgy puppet comedy, found himself in the middle of a confrontation that nobody saw coming. Kelly Clarkson, usually the picture of warmth and positivity, showed a side of herself that left her audience stunned and her guest walking off the set. The tension was thick, the words were sharp, and what started as a typical daytime interview spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in talk show history. This was not a scripted bit. This was not planned for ratings. This was real, raw, and absolutely unforgettable. Before we dive into exactly what was said and how things escalated so quickly, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think really caused this blow-up. Was Kelly out of line, or did Jeff cross a boundary he shouldn't have? Let us know. The interview started like any other. Kelly Clarkson walked onto her bright, cheerful set to thunderous applause, flashing that trademark smile that has made her a daytime television staple. The audience was buzzing with excitement, ready for another episode filled with heartwarming stories, musical performances, and celebrity banter. Jeff Dunham was announced as the guest, and the crowd erupted. Love him or hate him, there is no denying that Dunham has a massive fan base, and many of them were clearly in attendance that day. He walked out with his signature confident stride, carrying one of his famous puppet cases, waving to the audience as they cheered. Kelly greeted him with open arms, literally giving him a hug before they both sat down. The cameras captured what seemed like genuine friendliness, two entertainers ready to have a fun conversation about comedy, touring, and life in the spotlight. Kelly opened with her usual light energy, complimenting Jeff on his recent tour and asking him how it felt to still be selling out massive venues after all these years. Jeff responded with his typical self-assured charm, joking about how he never expected a career in comedy to last this long, let alone one that involved talking to himself through dolls. The audience laughed. Kelly laughed. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But there was something in the air, a subtle shift that only became clear in hindsight. Kelly's questions began to take on a slightly different tone. She asked Jeff about the evolution of his comedy, about whether he ever felt like the world had changed around him while his act stayed the same. It was phrased casually, but there was an edge to it, a suggestion hidden beneath the friendly words. Jeff picked up on it immediately. His smile tightened just a fraction, and he responded with a measured answer about how comedy is subjective and how his job is to make people laugh, not to chase trends. Kelly nodded, but she did not let it go. She pressed further, asking if he ever worried about offending people, if he ever reconsidered some of his material in light of how much more sensitive audiences have become. The word sensitive hung in the air for a moment, and Jeff's expression shifted. He leaned back in his chair, his posture becoming more defensive, and said something that would set the tone for everything that followed. He said that comedy has always been about pushing boundaries, about making people uncomfortable in order to make them laugh, and that if everyone is worried about offending someone, then comedy dies. The audience gave a mixed reaction. Some clapped, others stayed silent. Kelly's smile faltered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. She nodded slowly and said that she understood his perspective, but then she asked a question that would ignite the fuse. She asked if there was a difference between pushing boundaries and simply being insensitive. If maybe some jokes were not about being edgy, but about being lazy. Jeff's jaw tightened. He sat up straighter, and the friendly atmosphere that had opened the interview evaporated in an instant. He asked Kelly what she meant by that. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable challenge in it. Kelly did not back down. She said that some comedians hide behind the excuse of edginess, when really they are just repeating stereotypes that have been around forever. That calling something a joke does not automatically make it okay. Jeff let out a short laugh, one that had no humor in it, and said that it sounded like she had invited him on her show just to lecture him. The audience gasped. You could feel the discomfort spreading through the room like a wave. Kelly's smile disappeared completely now, and she leaned forward, her voice taking on a firmer tone. She said that she invited him because she wanted to have an honest conversation, because she respected his success, but also believed that people with platforms have a responsibility to think about the impact of their words. Jeff shook his head and said that responsibility is a code word for censorship. that the moment comedians start worrying more about being responsible than being funny, they stop being comedians and become politicians. Kelly shot back, saying that caring about how your words affect people is not censorship, it is basic human decency. The audience was dead silent now, every eye locked on the two of them, waiting to see who would blink first. Jeff leaned forward, his voice rising slightly. He said that comedy is not about decency, it is about truth, about saying the things that everyone is thinking but too afraid to say out loud. He said that his puppets allow him to explore characters and perspectives that make people laugh, because they recognize the absurdity in them, and that if Kelly could not understand that, then maybe she did not understand comedy at all. That line landed like a bomb. Kelly's face flushed, and for a moment it looked like she might end the interview right there, but instead, she took a breath and responded with icy precision. She said that she understood comedy just fine, that she had been in entertainment long enough to know the difference between clever satire and cheap shots. She said that hiding behind a puppet does not make a joke more acceptable, it just makes it cowardly. Jeff's face went red. He stood up abruptly, and the audience let out a collective gasp. Kelly stayed seated, staring up at him with an expression that was equal parts defiant and shocked. Jeff pointed at her and said that he had been doing this for decades, that he had earned his place in comedy, and that he did not need a lecture from someone who built her career on being nice. Kelly stood up to now, her voice sharp. She said that being nice does not mean being a pushover, and that just because someone has been doing something for a long time does not mean they are doing it right. Jeff laughed bitterly and said that this was exactly the problem with people like her, always thinking they know better, always trying to police what others say and do. Kelly fired back, saying that holding people accountable is not policing, it is expecting them to grow. The tension was unbearable. The audience did not know whether to clap, boo, or sit in stunned silence. Most chose the latter. Jeff looked around the room, then back at Kelly. He said that he did not sign up to be ambushed on national television, that if she had a problem with his comedy, she should have said so before inviting him on her show. Kelly responded that she did not ambush him. She asked him legitimate questions, and if he could not handle being challenged, then maybe he was not as confident in his material as he claimed to be. That was the breaking point. Jeff grabbed his puppet case, told Kelly that this was a waste of his time, and started walking toward the edge of the stage. Kelly called after him, asking if he was really going to walk out just because someone disagreed with him. Jeff stopped, turned around, and said one final thing that would echo long after the cameras stopped rolling. He said that the difference between them was that he made people laugh for a living, while she made people feel good about themselves, and that one of those things required actual talent. The words cut through the studio like a knife. Kelly's face went from flushed to pale in an instant. The audience erupted in a chaotic mix of gasps, scattered boos, and a few uncomfortable laughs from people who did not know how else to react. Jeff did not wait for a response. He turned back toward the exit and kept walking, his puppet case swinging at his side. Kelly stood there, frozen for a moment, her mouth slightly open as if she wanted to say something, but could not find the words. Then something shifted in her expression. The shock turned to anger, and she was not about to let him have the last word. She called out to him, her voice louder now, projecting across the entire studio. She said that talent is not just about making people laugh, it is about connecting with them, about lifting them up instead of tearing them down. Jeff stopped again, but this time he did not turn around immediately. He stood there for a few seconds, his back to her, and the audience held its collective breath. When he finally turned, his face was a mixture of frustration and something else, something that looked almost like hurt beneath the anger. He walked back toward the center of the stage, not all the way to his seat, but close enough that the cameras captured every detail of his expression. He said that he had been connecting with audiences for over 30 years, selling out arenas while most comedians could barely fill a club. He said that his fans loved him because he was not afraid to say what they were thinking, because he gave them permission to laugh at things that society told them were off limits. Kelly shook her head and said that giving people permission to laugh at harmful stereotypes was not brave, it was lazy. She said that real comedy challenges people to think differently, not just reinforces what they already believe. Jeff's voice rose again. He said that she had no idea what real comedy was, that she lived in a bubble where everything was sanitized and safe, where the biggest risk she ever took was singing a cover song. The insult was personal now, and everyone in the room felt it. Kelly's eyes widened, and she took a step toward him. She said that, at least when she performed, she was not hiding behind characters. At least she had the courage to be herself on stage. Jeff laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Characters were an extension of himself, that every puppet represented a part of the human experience, and that if she was too simple-minded to understand that, it was not his problem. The audience was in complete disarray now. Some people were shouting at Jeff, others were shouting at Kelly, and the producers off camera were clearly scrambling to figure out what to do. Kelly's voice cut through the noise, sharp and controlled. She said that she understood his characters just fine, that they were caricatures designed to get cheap laughs from people who enjoyed punching down. Jeff's face twisted in anger. He said that punching down was a phrase used by people who wanted to control comedy, who wanted to decide what was acceptable and what was not. He said that comedy had no rules, no boundaries, and that the moment you started imposing them, it stopped being art and became propaganda. Kelly fired back immediately. She said that art without responsibility was just chaos. That words have power, and people with platforms had to acknowledge that. She said that she had built her career on authenticity and kindness, and she was not going to apologize for believing that those things mattered. Jeff shook his head in disbelief. He said that kindness was just another word for weakness, that the entertainment industry was full of people who smiled to your face while stabbing you in the back, and that at least he was honest about who he was. Kelly's voice dropped lower, more intense. She said that honesty without compassion was just cruelty, and that if he could not see the difference, then maybe he had been performing for so long that he had forgotten how to be a real person. That line hit harder than anything else she had said. Jeff went quiet for a moment, and for the first time in the entire exchange, he looked genuinely shaken. The audience sensed the shift, and the chaotic noise died down to an uneasy murmur. Jeff stared at Kelly, and she stared right back, neither one willing to break eye contact. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter but no less cutting. He said that she did not know anything about his life, about the struggles he had faced or the sacrifices he had made to get where he was. He said that it was easy to preach about compassion when you won a reality show and had success handed to you on a silver platter. Kelly's face hardened. She said that nothing in her life had been handed to her, that she had fought for everything. She had, and that using her success against her was a pathetic attempt to deflect from the real issue. She said that this was not about their careers, it was about the choices they made with their influence. Jeff scoffed and said that influence was just a buzzword. That people needed to stop acting like entertainers were responsible for solving the world's problems. He said that his job was to make people laugh, period, and that if some people got offended along the way, that was their problem, not his. Kelly stepped closer to him, her voice rising again. She said that when millions of people watch you, listen to you, and repeat your jokes, you do not get to pretend that your words do not matter. She said that every time he made a joke at the expense of a marginalized group, he was telling his audience that it was okay to mock those people, that they were less deserving of respect. Jeff threw his hands up in exasperation. He said that everything was a marginalized group now, that you could not make a joke about anything without someone claiming to be a victim. He said that comedy used to be fun, used to be a way for people to escape their problems, but now it had turned into a minefield where one wrong word could end your career. Kelly shook her head firmly. She said that no one was trying to end his career, that all she was asking for was a little bit of awareness, a little bit of thought about the impact of his words. She said that comedy could still be fun, still be edgy, without being harmful. Jeff laughed again, that same humorless sound. He said that harm was subjective, that what offended her might make someone else laugh until they cried, and that trying to please everyone was a recipe for mediocrity. Kelly replied that she was not asking him to please everyone, she was asking him to consider everyone, and if he could not do that, then maybe he did not deserve the platform he had. The room went silent again. That last statement hung in the air like a challenge. Jeff's expression shifted through several emotions in quick succession. Anger, disbelief, and finally something close to resignation. He picked up his puppet case again and looked directly at Kelly. He said that this conversation was over, that he had come on her show expecting a professional interview, not a personal attack disguised as a dialogue. Kelly responded that it was only an attack if he felt guilty about something, that all she had done was ask questions he should have been asking himself a long time ago. Jeff shook his head one last time. He said that he did not feel guilty about making people happy, about giving them a break from the constant negativity and judgment that people like her brought into the world. He said that she could keep her compassion and her responsibility and her influence, and he would keep doing what he did best, making people laugh. Kelly said softly, almost sadly, that she hoped one day he would understand that those things were not mutually exclusive, that you could make people laugh and still treat them with dignity. Jeff did not respond. He turned and walked toward the exit for the third time, and this time no one stopped him. Kelly stood there watching him go, her chest rising and falling with deep breaths. The audience sat in complete shock, some with hands over their mouths, others whispering urgently. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second. Kelly turned back to face the audience, looking like she might cry, but she pulled herself together. She walked back to her chair and sat down slowly, running a hand through her hair. The studio was so quiet you could hear the shuffle of feet. A producer stepped onto the stage, approaching Kelly cautiously. They exchanged whispered words, and Kelly nodded, waving them away. She looked directly into the camera, her expression serious. She said that what just happened was not planned, that it was a real conversation that got heated, and that sometimes disagreements happen even when both people think they are right. Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor underneath it. She continued, saying that she believed in having difficult conversations, in not shying away from topics that made people uncomfortable. She said that comedy was important, that laughter was important, but so was kindness, and so was accountability. She said that she did not regret asking the questions she asked, and that she stood by everything she said. The audience began to clap, slowly at first, then building to a supportive roar. Kelly smiled slightly, but it did not reach her eyes. Meanwhile, backstage, Jeff was making his way through the narrow corridors toward the exit. Crew members tried to approach him, but he waved them off without making eye contact. His face was set in a hard expression, jaw clenched, eyes focused, straight ahead. He pushed through the stage door and emerged into the bright sunlight, walking quickly toward the car waiting for him. He threw his puppet case into the back seat and climbed in after it, slamming the door hard enough to rock the vehicle. Back inside, Kelly was trying to move forward with the show. She introduced a musical guest who had been waiting in the wings, someone who now had the unenviable task of performing after one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. The audience tried to shift gears, to return to the fun atmosphere they had expected, but it was impossible. The energy in the room had fundamentally changed. People were still talking about what they had witnessed, pulling out their phones to text friends and family. Kelly watched the performance with a fixed smile, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. During a commercial break, she stood up and walked to the side of the stage, talking animatedly with her producers. They were clearly discussing how to handle the situation, whether to address it further or pretend it had not happened. Kelly shook her head at something one of them said, her expression firm. She was not going to sweep this under the rug. When the show came back from commercial, Kelly addressed the audience again. She said that she knew everyone was still thinking about what happened earlier and that she wanted to be clear about something. She said that she respected Jeff Dunham as an entertainer, that she recognized his talent and his success. But that respect did not mean blind agreement. She said that part of respecting someone was being honest with them, even when that honesty was uncomfortable. She said that she hoped Jeff would think about their conversation, really think about it, and that maybe somewhere down the line they could have a calmer discussion about these issues. The audience applauded again, but there was a division in the room that had not been there before. Some people were fully on Kelly's side, nodding vigorously and clapping loudly. Others looked conflicted, perhaps feeling that she had been too harsh. A few people in the back were clearly on Jeff's side, their arms crossed, their expressions disapproving. The incident had created a rift in the audience itself, a microcosm of the larger cultural debates playing out across the country. Jeff, in his car heading away from the studio, stared out the window at the passing streets. He was angry, there was no question about that, but underneath the anger was something more complicated. He kept replaying moments from the conversation in his mind, hearing Kelly's words again, seeing the look on her face when he insulted her talent. He had said things in the heat of the moment that he was not sure he meant, or at least not sure he should have said out loud. His driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror and asked if he was okay. Jeff nodded curtly, not trusting himself to speak. Walking off that stage was supposed to feel like a victory, like he was taking a stand against censorship. But it did not feel like a victory. It felt messy and unresolved, and deeply uncomfortable. He watched himself get angry on video clips already circulating online, watched himself insult Kelly, watched himself walk off. From this distance, with the adrenaline fading, it looked different. It looked like two people who had both dug in their heels, both refused to really listen to what the other was saying. Back at the studio, Kelly sat in her dressing room, feeling the full weight of what had happened. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had hosted hundreds of episodes, interviewed countless celebrities, navigated difficult topics and emotional moments, but nothing had prepared her for the rawness of that confrontation. She had not set out to make Jeff walk off her show. She had genuinely wanted to have a conversation, but it had spiraled beyond her control. The cameras had captured the confrontation, the anger, the insults, the walk-off, but they had not captured the doubt, the reflection, the complicated feelings that came after. They had not captured the humanity underneath the spectacle. And maybe that was the real story, not the fireworks and the drama, but the fact that even in our most heated moments, when we are absolutely certain we are right and the other person is wrong, there is always a small voice asking if maybe, just maybe, it is more complicated than that. So what do you think? Was Kelly right to push Jeff on his comedy? Or did she cross the line? Should Jeff have stayed and finished the conversation? Or was walking off the only way to maintain his dignity? Drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. And if you want to see more stories like this, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an upload. So what do you think? Was Kelly right to push Jeff on his comedy? Or did she cross the line? Should Jeff have stayed and finished the conversation? Or was walking off the only way to maintain his dignity? Drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. And if you want to see more stories like this, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an upload.